Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. We're on a regular session this evening. Today is Monday, June 19th, 2017. I will be acting President Pro Tem this evening, and President Knisely will be our acting mayor. We have a quorum this evening with all members present. Moving on to the disposition of minutes. We had a regular session held June 5th, 2017. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of adopting the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The minutes have been adopted. Moving on to communications from council members. Are there any communications from council members? I believe Councilmember Pappy.
I have a couple transportation items. There's a concern that's been raised with me a couple times regarding the south side of Union Street and the concern with backup turning into one of the businesses' drive-through fast food windows, and how there's no way to kind of go around. You have to wait and wait and wait. And the side shoulder is in disrepair with some pretty significant ruts. You couldn't drive through it without hurting your tire or whatever, and I just thought I'd bring that up. Another item is administration as well as myself are in receipt of, as we hear this summer with all the construction in town, concerns with people cutting through neighborhoods. And for this instance, it's North Hill on off Columbia through Highland, Woodward, down Congress, and the residents up there are pretty concerned with the amount of speed, and that isn't a straight flat street. That is a curvy, several areas where there's limited sight. So I just wanted to bring that up as another form of communication this evening. Concern, safety concern.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment to Councilmember Pappy's? I think I know what you're talking about. It's especially bad on Wednesdays.
On Union.
On Union, yes.
Yeah. Especially bad.
Especially bad on Wednesdays. So.
Councilmember Fall.
I've also had several communications. A couple weeks ago, people were concerned about the cut-through, and I worked with the city, and people love their new signs. So thank you. They got signs that says, entering a residential area, please slow down. And we want to talk about maybe keeping them permanently. People love it. So thank you for,
Responding.
Yeah.
Other communications, Councilmember McGee.
Thank you, Councilmember Butler. I've had several citizens express concern based upon the Athens News article about the roundabout. They still they still are curious, as am I, as to what the city and the state proposes for the intersection of the road that would be right past the bridge where the heavy traffic occurs, although we've been assured that the state is going to be doing something about it, I just wondered at some point in time, I hope that will be revealed to the public what the answer will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Are there other comments from council members? I will briefly acknowledge communication that I received from a number of community members who have been encountering challenges with the new Union Street parking system. Some citizens aren't aware that there is an app or how to access that process, and just perturbed about having, not sure why they're getting tickets or maybe a grace period. So I just wanted to share that with the executive branch and the mayor's office. Thank you. Any other communications? Moving on to reports and communications from other elected officials, and we'll begin with the mayor's office, beginning with acting Mayor Knisely.
Thank you. I have two items for communication. One of them is from Mayor Patterson, and this is a brief note that that Cornelia Patterson, PhD, from the Assistant Dean for Academic Engagement and Outreach at the Patton College of Education, has written to her congressional representatives about the Upward Bound program, and the mayor asked that I let council members know and also the community that the recent application through the Department of Education for the Upward Bound grant program for Southeast Ohio was not approved. And so she has written to the Department of Education asking for reconsideration. The mayor will be as well, and wanted the rest of the community to know that. And it's been an important program for our community and for all of Southeast Ohio. This is the Upward Bound program. And what it does is helps first-generation college students with readiness skills and support services, preparing them to either seek higher ed or identify work that will set them towards the path of the middle class. So. Yeah,
Didn't I read that Dr. Nellis, the president of OU, reinstituted that today, or was that he's thinking of reinstituting it?
I think it was just for the summer.
That's what I meant.
And this is a federal grant application that's been declined at the federal level by the Department of Education. The second one has to do with an item that I believe our auditor will also be speaking to tonight, but it is one I know of concern to council members and administration as well. And this has to do with the state of Ohio's budget and their proposal at this point, which contains several items in the current budget bill that are detrimental, potentially harmful from a loss of revenue to our local communities all through Southeast Ohio. Several changes. One is a redirecting of the local government funds towards the opioid programs, which we know funding for those programs is very important, but at this point some of that funding will occur by removing our funding. There's also a move to support unincorporated areas with some of the local government funds, so a redistribution of them. And as I understand it, elimination of a throwback language, and then the change that our auditor reported to us earlier this year on the net operating loss. And all of these specifically will mean much less funding for us to try and do our general work, and I know she'll speak to some of this later. So a concern about this, very grave. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Nisley. Any reports or communications from Law Director Lisa Eliason? Thank you. And likewise from Auditor Hecht. Thank you, Auditor.
President Butler, and thank you, Acting Mayor Nisley, for starting that conversation. We've had some emails go back and forth. I think all of council was included in this. We all get the bulletins from the Ohio Municipal League, and have read about the income tax changes that they've attached to the budget bill. And I have issues with that to begin with. It should stand alone in a tax bill, but they've already started, and most likely they're going to go through with this. But I sent you my testimony. I did go up to Columbus and testify in front of the Senate Budget Committee on June 6th. So you've seen the throwback issues. Those are mail order companies that now they've created a nexus to nowhere. They can choose where they pay their taxes instead of paying it from their home base operation or where they send things from. You'd probably be surprised at the amount of internet business people in Athens do. And so that's an issue for us. We expect about $50,000 to $70,000 loss from that. And that's just based on the top 5 companies that do internet sales that we checked. And there are others, but those are the top 5 right there. So the other part is it adopts the new opt-in language, which is a little more confusing, but that allows net profit businesses to opt in to centralized collection. Those of you that have been around a while know that the centralized collection has been an issue for us for 2, maybe even 3 years now, where the state's trying to take over our collection of income tax. And this is clearly a violation of home rule and will end up costing us money. And I expect we will have cash flow issues because we collect our own income taxes. Some entities have a company that collects for them, but we receive tax revenue every day instead of waiting to get a monthly check or even, every couple weeks. It will affect our cash flow issues, but currently the money comes straight to us. There will be a 1% fee, which will be passed on to us. This will probably, just as a heads up, will affect our refund line. I'm not sure they're going to handle this. The state mandates refunds. We will let a business carry a credit. If they paid $1,500, but they only ended up owing $1,000, we would put a $500 credit on their account, and then, they can ask for it back whenever they want, but most of them prefer to leave that on there and then not have to owe taxes. And so the state won't allow that. So I don't know if they're going to go ahead and refund that money and then bill us for the 1% because there's no income or revenue from that. It just feels very complicating and a lot more work than the way it is set up now, but I don't know if that language will be changed or not. It also reduces the 5-year requirement to 1 year, which makes it easier for people to sign up, although it would be an automatic renewal, but it's an option. And I also received an email today about the Ohio Society of CPAs have put out asking people to contact their representatives in favor of the opt-in language and all that. So I don't know if we're going to win any of these, but the best we can hope for is to make it as friendly towards us as we can. It also changes penalty and interest assessments for withholding taxes, which is our largest source of revenue is the withholdings. But this wouldn't be a financial impact, but it would involve changes in our language, which would come before council. And of course, as far as other cuts, proposes to cut about a 30 to 90 million cut in local government funding, with 35 million going towards dealing with the opioid epidemic, and 24 million from the LGF funds going towards townships and villages rather than the municipalities. There are a lot of issues, but we've not seen the final language. The OML tax conference is next week, and our tax administrator, Tina Timberman, will be attending that. And so we expect to have more information and possibly a final draft after that. And so I'll report back after that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the auditor? Yes, Councilmember Reisner. Thank you, Auditor.
Yeah, I actually got a lot of questions, but the one thing that keeps coming to my mind is, since we are losing funds, who is benefiting from all this?
The state.
Well, okay, but where? What?
I mean, as far as the tax revenue, the state is, because they not only will collect our taxes and have that money to get interest on and use while they're holding it, and it would be a source of revenue for them. They're also charging us for that service. And so really the state is the one that benefits
So with all
by
these
that.
funds that will be coming to the state, they're going to build better highways, fast trains, better airports, infrastructure. What? I mean, what's it going for?
I don't know. I don't know why they feel the need to try to take that over. The municipal income tax has been in place for decades, and I don't know. We have a tax commissioner who just wants to be in control of it all, I guess.
The states of Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, even West, by God, Virginia, tax the extraction of oil and gas and coal. The state of Ohio doesn't. Okay, there's a great source of revenue right there that wouldn't be costing anybody anything except a few billionaires. I mean, if Texas can do it, why can't Ohio?
Not business friendly? I don't know. You should ask.
Oh, I guess Texas
ask the
isn't
mayor.
business friendly?
Thank you, Councilmember. Moving on to ordinances for third reading. Prior to reading the ordinances, I just want to acknowledge that this is our last meeting prior to our break. So we will be taking a recess this summer. This will be the last meeting prior to the break. We do have ordinances for third reading, second reading, and a one reading resolution, a couple first readings, and some possible suspensions. Ordinance 7117, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application for funding from the Ohio Department of Transportation Jobs and Commerce through the Athens County Transportation Improvement District for the Central Athens Fiber Optic Network Project. to execute contracts as required, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Cochran.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Butler. This has been talked about several times now in council, and it's in keeping with some of the complete streets work that has been done previously to lay fiber optic cable for the future use in projects like this. And I think the most important part of this, and I won't read all the whereases, but is that this is monies that could potentially be coming to us from the State of Ohio Department of Transportation through their Transportation Improvement District. And the potential uses could include business impacts as well as public safety impacts, since this will be a project that will take place upon the corridor of Court Street and out along Richland Avenue, connecting out through our fire station and other locations along that corridor. So I think the most important whereas here is that the City of Athens supports the Central Athens Fiber Optic Network project, as it will enhance economic development and improve public safety. We know that in our region, the digital divide continues to be great, and this is one step in improving access for folks in our community.
Thank you, Councilmember.
So I move to adopt Ordinance 7117.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council members? Yes, Councilmember McGee.
Thank you. I'm just curious, will this have any benefit for the residents of Athens who do not reside on either Court Street or Richland Avenue, or do business on Court Street or Richland Avenue?
Yes, I think certainly, and President Nisley would like to, or Mayor Nisley.
Chris. I think, some of our earlier conversations talked about economic development, but I think in the sense that this is going to enhance transportation and safety features because it connects from the armory, and that fiber optic loop will go all the way down to the fire station on Richland Avenue. So it interconnects all our traffic signals. It's going to connect existing traffic cameras, connect the Richland Avenue fire station. It's also going to connect the variable message sign north of the Hocking River so that we're instantly able to use that if we would need to in emergency purposes. It's going to upgrade the Court Street camera network, connect the armory to the city network for potential future use, connect parking kiosks to support that metered parking management, and then provide wireless access points along Court Street for public Wi-Fi, and provide fiber connection for business-to-business linkages. So I think on the individual level, for personal ease of being able to potentially use public Wi-Fi, for the businesses, for safety, and for traffic, for both permanent residents, for visitors who might come to the city, I think there are a number of features to this if we're successful with the grant application.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Any other questions or comments from council or from the public? Okay, we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting Ordinance 7117, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion has been adopted. The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 7317, an ordinance amending Ordinance 151-16, the 2017 staffing levels in the police department, and declaring an emergency, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Who would be speaking on this evening?
I shall.
Thank you, Councilman Reisner.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Butler. I make a motion that we adopt 7317.
Second.
We've discussed this in committee and our previous councils. Essentially, we are reducing the number of lieutenants from 6 to 5 and increasing the patrol officers from 19 to 20. That's all
Thank
there is
you.
to it.
Thank you, Councilmember. Other questions or comments? Mayor's office, public?
Just
Yeah.
that we support this. This is what the police chief desires. If you recall, we've had like a 6th provisional lieutenant for a number of years to help with some transitioning and training, but he wants the foot soldiers.
So there's no net change in the total staffing number, but as the service safety director says, more police on the streets.
Thank you. If there's no further questions or comments, we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting ordinance 7317, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance has been adopted. Moving on to ordinance 7417, an ordinance authorizing the city service safety director to advertise and accept bids where necessary and enter into contracts for construction and construction engineering services for the municipal pool, project number 292, introduced by Councilmember Butler. I will acknowledge that we have discussed this at length. It's been on our agenda and within our vision for a number of years. This also transcends a number of mayor's offices and administrations. It's been something that the community has been looking forward to for a number of years. We have an aging infrastructure that is over 44 years old. We're lucky to have it open this summer currently, and it is limping its way through the summer, hopefully to be replaced with the new one. There were some questions from council members about a few issues, one which was the lap swimming layout, and we do have a, thank you, Scott, for putting that up there. We have an image here which will address the lanes, and we received an email update from Keith Hall of MSA Sports, which is he's indicating in an email to council in the mayor's office that the lap pool walking lanes, per the sketch, will show 2 lanes at a consistent 4-foot depth, with a third sloping gently to and towards the 5-foot depth. So this option then, the first 3 to 4 lanes could be used for walking before getting too deep at the 7-foot dimension of depth.
These 2 lanes out here, and council members have that, but it's these 2 lanes that go the entire length. Sorry, it's a touch screen. Oh, no.
Don't touch.
So Acting Mayor Nisley was indicating, for those of you in TV land, she was pointing to the lanes on the diagram, since we don't have a laser pointer here, which would be the lanes affected by this depth change. The other point that we did receive, which was questions pertaining to lighting, is that their indications are that let's see, they're 0.1 or below all along the property line, with exception at the western property line, which would be 0.2 for a short period. They've been working to resolve this by adjusting the location of the poles in this area slightly, and all lighting will be LED per the schedule on the drawing. And there are quite extensive blueprints and drawings that are in the council chambers for public access as well. Yes, Mayor.
And there was one other question that somebody asked about the ages, and Service Safety Director Haran Mosley forwarded that to us last Thursday. And for the rec pool, 1/3 of the space is 0 to 2 feet depth and can be used by all ages up to around 5 years old. 1/3 is 2 foot to 3'6" in depth and can be used for 7 to 8-year-olds and up. And then 1/3 is the 3 to 6 foot area. Primarily users will be in the 12-year-old and up range. I think those were the main the questions that were asked last week in committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions or comments? And I hope that these updates help answer some people's questions and concerns. They may not necessarily appease them, which is challenging, obviously, in a community as diverse as ours. Questions or comments? Yes, Councilmember Katsas.
Thank you. So at 4-foot depth, that's enough for a swimmer to dive in? Is that?
I do not know that diving will be allowed, but in order to accommodate the walkers that get in and out of the pool
Okay. But it's not
via ladder.
it's not a competition?
It is not.
Okay.
The far lanes will be competition
Length.
built, but
Length,
yeah,
yeah.
we're not
And-
building a competition.
And I think I did also hear from the mayor when I asked him about people being able to do is, are they flip turns when people swim laps?
Yes.
That the 4 foot will accommodate that, was the information he received.
Okay. Well, preferable, I guess my understanding might be slightly deeper, but it will accommodate it. Any other questions or comments? Comments from the public regarding this ordinance? Okay, seeing none. So we do have a motion. Did I make a motion? Thank you. I did make, no, I didn't make, I did. We don't have a second.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 7417. All those in favor of adopting this ordinance, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. Thank you, everyone. Ordinances for second reading. 7517, an ordinance approving the plan of operation and governance for the NOPEC gas aggregation program for the purpose of jointly establishing and implementing an opt-out gas aggregation program in the city of Athens and declaring an emergency, introduced by all members of council. Any questions or comments? Ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 7617, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise and accept bids where necessary for construction of the water treatment plant facilities improvements project, which is number 307, introduced by Councilmember Butler. If you recall, we discussed this briefly in committee the other evening. This is addressing the desperate need to enhance and improve our water treatment plant, which is, again, part of our aging infrastructure. I believe the original building was built in the 50s, with the second building built in the 60s. Quite simply to empower the City Service Safety Director to begin this process. Any questions or comments? Any comments?
Just that this is part of a multi-step process, which we had described briefly in committee last week, that this is the ordinance that's key for us to be able to meet the deadline for the water supply revolving loan fund deadline. So that this is very critical. Then we'll be asking a grant authorization to advertise and accept bids. Oh, that is this one, excuse me. Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
We're here.
We are there. We are at the second step. And then after that, after this one's passed, then we'll have the need to pass a resolution of tentative award for construction, and then needing to authorize construction and construction engineering. So kind of like sidewalk assessments, and it's multi-phased.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 7717, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise and accept bids where necessary for Arts West renovations project number 314, introduced by Councilmember Butler. Again, we discussed this in committee meeting, desperate needs to improve the accessibility in the basement of Arts West to the bathrooms and to the building. I believe, again, some of the upgrades include the kitchen and a new floor, if I recall correctly. This is approximately a $180,000 project, with $20,000 of it coming from the Arts, Parks, and Recreation income tax, and then $160,000 coming from the Recreation Fund, 270 TC 500. Any questions or comments? Mayor's office.
And that we are asking if it's possible at all to suspend this tonight.
Thank you.
Because we do have the need to get these repairs done as quickly as possible. And some of them, yes, are very basic, as you mentioned: plumbing, painting, door frames, kitchen, electric, re-roof, that kind of thing.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to suspend Ordinance 7717 as acknowledged by the mayor and his needs.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on suspension only? All those in favor of suspending the rules, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. We are now under suspension of the rules. I would like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 7717.
Second.
Thank you. As indicated earlier, any questions or comments before we proceed? Any comments from the public?
Just that the repairs that they're making enable Arts West to do their programming. And so that's part of the importance of it too, that these are program related.
Meaning they're able to carve out a period of time where this can not impact their other
Between
programs. So that's what they're asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I recall the mayor indicating that last week as well and working along their needs. Any other questions or comments? So we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 7717. All those in favor of adopting the ordinance, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 7817, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise and accept bids where necessary for the purchase of an educational smoke trailer for the fire department, introduced by Councilmember Butler. Again, we discussed this in committee last week, which is educational and beneficial for all of us to hear, as well as the public. Some people may not have known or been aware that we had this educational component to our fire department in our city. We do have an old trailer that has served the needs of the city for a number of years. There's an effort to improve the trailer, making the new one accessible to all people, all abilities, and all age groups. Any questions or comments? Yes, Councilmember McGee.
When I asked questions last meeting concerning this, I had no idea as to what it was, and I've been thinking of it since, and it seems that it's a very good opportunity to educate the public, but I just wondered, it would seem that it would probably not be used extensively through the year, and I just wondered, is there any option for the city of Athens going into a partnership with some of the other cities so that it could be utilized more often? Now, I don't know how often it is utilized, and that would be my question, whether the administration really knows that. But if it's taken to schools and to the Kid Fest or something like that, I would assume that it's used maybe 20 or 30 times a year at the most. But it would seem that it's a good thing, and I would hope that other communities could benefit from it if it could be shared. So that was just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Councilmember Wright.
Thanks.
Yes, Mayor.
And I think the Service Safety Director was indicating that we do use it on a county-wide basis as much as possible. So, but we could certainly check further if we can share it with other communities and if there would be an interest. It's a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. And my understanding too, as well, in speaking with the chief, is that the new trailer will be able to perhaps catch a wider net of educational opportunities by not only working with children of elementary school age, but all age groups, since it can also look at kitchen fires and something that would be more relevant to an adult or a young adult. But thank you, and we look forward to hearing back from the department. Moving on to ordinance 7917, an ordinance amending the 2017 appropriation ordinance, and this is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Member Butler. I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 7917.
Second.
The reason for the suspension is that in part of this appropriation ordinance, the amounts need to be posted immediately, and the auditor needs to speak to that.
Ordinance 7917.
Or not.
So to clarify, 30,000 of it is for the parking garage fund, and then $2,224 to unclaimed funds. So that's what we're.
We need to deal with the unclaimed checks that we've gotten, which is really $1,700 more than this, but we had already appropriated $1,500 or $1,700, I guess. So we have quite a few checks that we need to deal with, so we need the money in that account. There's no money that goes into that account. We just appropriate as needed, depending on the unclaimed checks that we have. We move that money, whether it was issued by the tax under refunds or, accounts payable for a vendor, then we move that money out of the fund we tried to pay it out of and into the unclaimed funds so we can deal with it. There are we have a policy, but there are also state requirements about dealing with unclaimed funds. So the sooner we can take care of this, the better. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Auditor. Thank you, Acting Mayor Nisley. We do have a motion to suspend the rules, and I want to, in a second, is there any discussion on suspension only? Okay, is there, then having said that motion in a second, all those in favor of suspending the rules for 7917, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, Councilmember, proceed.
I now make a motion to adopt 7917.
Second.
And as the acting mayor has already read Section 1 and the auditor, council is informed what needs to be done. So,
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there discussion?
I do
Yes.
have a question. If there's any information about the longevity of the art installation through the Athens Photographic Project, will that be a permanent installation? We don't have much information about that.
I haven't received of late. They're in the process of changing design, and of course had an increased cost for that. I can just, for example, the traffic box wraps, they're 3 to 5 year lifespan, or when the city deems that they'd have to be taken down. So I believe we're going to have some longevity to this, but I couldn't speak to an exact estimate.
Thank you, and I can address some of those issues. The mayor and I were both present at the recent Municipal Arts Commission meeting discussing this project with representatives from the Athens Photographic Project present. I believe my understanding is that their hope is that the project will be worthwhile. They're working with Hilferty International to make it presentable to the elements because it will be outdoors, and Hilferty has a experience with that area of expertise and design, museum quality. I do believe, too, that they are being savvy. The Athens Photographic Project is also seeking funding elsewhere so that the city isn't solely responsible for this project. I think Athens Foundation is my understanding. Yes. I hope that helps answer some of your questions. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councilmember.
There was a public meeting at one point in time where some of the photographs were presented for review, and some of the issues that were raised were that the photographs showed a non-diverse culture, among other things, and it also showed that a lot of the photographs were outside of the city of Athens, really didn't deal with the people of Athens or the issues of Athens. I just wondered whether that had been dealt with or addressed at all by either the Arts Commission or anyone in charge, since they seem to be fairly important issues.
In the eye of the beholder, I guess. Art.
Yes.
I have not heard.
The impression I was there, Councilman McGee, is that we are dealing with a special population that has produced these pictures, and I got the impression that they were going to honor that. It did sound, Pat, like they might change some out, but he's right. There were a lot of rural pictures and things that were outside of the city, as it were. So they did. We can ask for an update. We can ask for another presentation back to council. The only piece that I was tracking was that the wooden overhang was not going to be attached and affixed to a garage, or a parking garage. Do you recall that coming up at the AMAC meeting, Kent?
Not
Okay.
sorry. They may have, but I may have missed that.
If you remember the wood pieces.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I think there was some real concern, though, that it was a non-diverse representation. The photographs were mainly of families from the area without showing any of our minority representations in any way. And I think that does a disservice to the community of Athens.
And I'm not sure if what we saw was a mock-up or an idea, not necessarily a finished product, that maybe those images were just to begin the discussion or to, but I'm not positive. Yeah, we can ask for an update.
I think perhaps asking Josh to come and speak
Yeah.
to council would be
Yeah,
good.
Councilmember Patton.
And this is a 317 board-funded program as a therapeutic tool to use with mentally ill residents of our community, who are also a diverse part of our community, I would add. So I think unless they were given directives in terms of their photography and what was requested, and I don't know if they were given directives. So I think having the director come back and discuss it with us isn't a bad idea, just so people have a better understanding of what the directives were. It may have been open, take photographs that are important to you, or whatever that is. Inspired. So, I mean, it is being funded partly with public monies, so I think we have the right to ask these questions, certainly. But I think we also need to be sensitive to, for instance, our Court Street banners that are hanging right now, Healthy Appalachia. Young people were told to draw something related to, I don't know what their directive was, but I think it's, healthy life in our community, and what that means to them. And you look at them, some have sports on them, some have food on them, some have hills on them, so I think it's all in the directive of, whatever was given at that time, so.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second, am I correct, on 7917? If there's no further comments, all those in favor of adopting ordinance 7917, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 8017, an ordinance vacating a portion of Moore Avenue, AKA Moore Street, between Factory Street and Roberts Alley upon petition of the adjoining property owner, Ohio University, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. We had talked about this earlier, a couple committee meetings ago, and we had to wait for paperwork that was coming from OU. And we have now gotten that paperwork. So this is to vacate alley-ish sort of street over off of West Union so they can go forward with their construction of the stuff that has something to do with the medical school.
Medical school, college, or something.
Never ever. So
Well said.
Maybe.
yeah, maybe,
Maybe.
possibly.
Heritage College of Medicine.
You're right. And they understand about that one tree. So people have, we have our heritage trees. And we've talked a lot about trees, and people are getting it when they're putting forward plans. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, Acting Mayor.
Just to add to Councilmember Fall's information, yes, we have been working with the university, and the law director has been assisting us to make sure we have the papers in order. At the same time that we are moving this legislation forward then about this land exchange, the University Board of Trustees is going to have this under consideration with their board members this week. So we do have a copy of that resolution.
Thank you. If there's no further questions or comments, moving on to Ordinance 8117, an ordinance granting variances from the Athens City Subdivision Regulations to Wanda Cash, 46 Canterbury Drive, to allow a minor lot split. Again, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. We talked about this last week. It's a fairly self-explanatory lot split up in Canterbury, creating two lots with several variances going on to the deed.
Thank you. Any questions or comments or representatives? Moving on to Ordinance 8217, an ordinance amending Athens City Code, Title III, Administrative Provisions, to add Chapter 3.12, Efforts to Change Sexual Orientation or Gender Identity with a Minor, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. Last week we talked about this. There was quite a number of people who came and gave eloquent discussion about their experiences and experiences at the professional level with various social workers who've come to talk about this. Some people have asked why Athens needs to do this. Well, the very fact that the state has not banned it, even though various professional organizations such as the Psychiatric Association and the Psychology Association have said that this is not an appropriate type of therapy to be doing. There are places that who have continued that. And so this gives another tool to be able to educate people about what's going on, and to give people the empowerment, because if they say, well, I'm not happy, you're a licensed person who's doing this, they have a tool to come to their professional association that the therapist is belong to, and also the city. So it gives them opportunity to be empowered and protected. Athens is very inclusive, and this is another way to make sure that all our citizens in the city are protected and feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. We do have comments from council members as well as speaker or guest.
I just would comment on something you said. And it's not a professional organization, it's a licensure board set up by the legislature. And there are bylaws and laws and rules as a licensed professional that we have to follow. And ethical as well as, other kinds of laws. So, and restrictions. So that's different than a professional organization.
Thank you, Councilmember. And if there's comment from the public, please be mindful that we do have to limit the discussions to 3 minutes. Thank you.
That's an association. It's not just a licensing.
President Pro Tem Butler, I had to change all my notes, and Acting Mayor Nisley, thank you for the opportunity to come before you today to talk about the dangerous practice of conversion therapy. I'm sorry I couldn't attend last week's committee meeting, but my name is Kim Welter, and I'm the Director of Policy and Finance at Equality Ohio, which is a statewide non-discrimination advocacy organization. We received the draft last Friday. And while I really, really appreciate you're basing it on Cincinnati's ordinance, which was passed in 2015, time passes very quickly and things change. And I ran the draft past our national advisors, and they had a couple of minor shifts that they'd like to see done. Instead of saying sexual orientation and gender identity change efforts, that we call that conversion therapy, and an updating of the definition of conversion therapy. I believe it's in your email, Councilmember Fall. So that would be wonderful if we could do that before you pass, just so that Athens has the most up-to-date language going.
There are 3 readings. This will go through all 3 readings. So.
Okay. So, yeah, hopefully that we see that. So a couple of some things that Councilmember Fall was talking about. The Southern Poverty Law Center estimates that there are over 70 licensed therapists in 20 states who advertise that they perform reparative therapy, including 3 in Ohio. But it's hard to estimate the number who couch conversion therapy behind phrases like behavior modification and ex-gay support groups. As far as this state bans, as of today, conversion therapy on minors is legislatively banned in 8 states and the District of Columbia, that's California, Illinois, Oregon, Vermont, New Jersey, New Mexico, Connecticut, Nevada, and through executive action in New York. These legal bans prevent mental health professionals from attempting to change a child's sexual orientation or gender identity. There are 18 municipalities like yourself who have already made these ordinances, starting with Cincinnati in 2015 and including Toledo and Columbus in the state of Ohio. We've talked about why Athens should do this? Well, the federal government a number of times has tried to introduce bills. Representative Ted Lieu in 2015. Repeatedly, U.S. Rep. Jackie Speer has introduced what they call the shock resolution, Stop Harming Our Kids. After the death of Leila Elkhorn near Cincinnati, more than 120,000 people signed a White House petition to ban conversion therapy, calling it Leila's Law. In response to this petition, then President Barack Obama announced that he would support the effort to end the practice of conversion therapy for minors. Senator Sherrod Brown and Senator Cory Booker have introduced that shock resolution in 2015. I'm skipping my notes to get my 3 minutes here. But despite all of this, in August of 2016, the GOP draft platform called for defending a parent's right to send their child, who they perceive to be or who identifies as LGBTQ, to any therapy they choose, including conversion therapy. We've talked about the professional organizations who support banning therapy. If you want me to, I can read them, but I'll wait for questions on that. Public opinion surveys in 2016 found that the Pew Research Center found that 63% majority say homosexuality should be accepted by society. We understand that parents who send their child to conversion therapy, like many parents, are trying to do the best thing they know for their child. Providing this forum in which to do public education and ban the practice of conversion therapy on minors by licensed professionals, again, minors by licensed professionals, is important work in protecting the lives and well-being of Southeast Ohio's young people. It is very possible that a licensed professional outside the city limits, and therefore not subject to this ban, will think twice about attempting to use conversion therapy on a minor and may get instruction in affirmative therapy techniques instead. Perhaps a well-meaning parent will seek help from PFLAG or an affirmative therapist rather than a conversion therapist. This ban will make a difference to Southeast Ohio's children. So, in wrapping it up, why Athens should do this? The licensing boards cannot. They regulate therapists, not therapy. Conversion therapy bans have been repeatedly introduced in the Ohio General Assembly and the federal level, as you've heard, but have failed to receive anything beyond sponsor testimony. And we've talked about the other municipalities in Ohio. Conversion therapy happens in Ohio, and Ohio's children need to be protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Thank you again for speaking. Mayor's office.
And just for city administration and on behalf of the mayor, obviously supporting this legislation. I did have a technical question. Are you intending to amend it tonight, or will you bring it on the second reading? You'll have the changes and then it'll be read the first time.
Debbie and I actually did look at some of the changes, and so we do have to converse.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to Ordinance 8317, an ordinance authorizing a pilot residential parking permit program introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. We've been discussing this ordinance for some time, and after working on the ordinance last week, decided to move it forward. I know that administration has some concerns with what we have written currently, so I'm hoping that council members have had some time to review it. But I do also want, with President Pro Tem's approval, to hear what some of administration's issues are. So is there anyone on council first who would like to speak?
Any council members wishing to address this ordinance at the moment?
Okay. All right.
I'll say something. You mentioned this thing's been around for a while. How long's it been now? A year?
A year in July.
Okay. I'm willing to give it a chance. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Try something else.
I think it's important for the audience to know an ordinance authorizing a pilot residential parking permit program for certain streets which are listed, so.
I think I'd like to lead off, and then Service Safety Director Corinne Mosley will address some of the details. And on behalf of the administration, I'd like to say that the administrative offices are supportive of it. They want to make it work. And I think that prefacing some of the things that we'll be listing, the mayor and the service safety director have met with the planner and the code director and the police chief to find out the things that need to be incorporated so that it can be workable from an administrative component too. So that's another essential feature to it.
Thank you. For this parking permit pilot, there were a number we met. We did not realize that we had a committee Monday and we were going to be addressing an ordinance on this Monday. According to the police, to alleviate the pilot area from the 24-hour law period, it's unenforceable at 72. Reduce the pilot area. We have a map. It affords a defined block area for enforcement and review. It would basically run from the ones behind Lancaster, Arc, Lemon, incorporate Mound, Congress, Ring, Grosvenor, Franklin, back to the end in Spring, to allow a more defined pilot area that could be circulated on a regular basis to see if we're seeing any problems. Now that I said see any problems, one of the metrics have not been defined on what does success look like? What does failure look like? We assume if it's people are having issues that we'll get calls at City Hall, but that's something also to add to, especially coming from Mayor Patterson, who was the researcher. We believe that we would like to promote it in the fall, affording all residents in the area to know about this program and run the 6-month program beginning in January. I believe the fee needs to be higher, but waived for the pilot area, meaning if we're going to do this go forward, and this is going to happen on multiple streets or any streets within the city, is $25 an annual fee enough to secure use of that public space? We are suggesting a $150 annual fee, not for the pilot, it's waived during the pilot. I wanted you to be aware that of note, as it currently is, it defines one per residence. There are duplexes, apartments, et cetera, in any of these defined areas. So one per resident could be, I'm just going to choose a number, 110 Congress A, 110 Congress B. This could have a multiplying effect. We don't know, we'll need to see. We would also like it to run for 6 months as a pilot, and we do not plan on erecting any signs. There will be stickers on the vehicles that identify the street that they're a resident of. If your sticker is North Congress, that will afford the enforcement. So those were our first draft, first stab kind of issues that we wanted to make council aware.
The only thing, were all these streets included in your area that are listed in here?
They are not. We have defined it. We found 19 streets as too broad and too wide, and that came from our police chief.
So do we have a number on how many it reduces it to, or could we list them
We
so we
had it,
outline
we
them
can,
tonight?
but I will, one of the streets may not allow parking, so that was one. It's Arc, Fremont, Mound, Ring, Pine, Fort, Congress, Grosvenor, Franklin, Spring, and Evans.
These are all, none of these are on the west side, they're all North Hill.
Well, this was brought forward originally from a resident on Mound who's in the audience and has also had an active participation in crafting the language. So we thought she should be included. And that is a geographical area that we believe that our parking enforcement officer, the Jeep driver, would be able to circulate on a regular basis.
Okay. Any other comments from council on Member McGee?
Thank you. Just a question. When you suggest waiving the fee, are you suggesting waiving the $25 fee as well during this period?
Correct. Waiving a permit fee during a pilot.
Wouldn't that kind of change the findings? I mean, if it's free parking as opposed to $150, wouldn't that?
Well, that's actually a good question. If it's $25, it might as well be zero. Who wouldn't want a parking pass for their street for $25?
Well, you have to have the parking limitations before you can even apply for this permit. You have to have the parking limitations of,
We do not believe that that's enforceable either, I'm sorry. One or no off-street parking spaces available that would require a whole nother review. I would encourage council once again to read Oxford, because you've utilized them as an example in the past, and they have different regulations, different for each different street. It also, again, talks to the preamble about how surveys were conducted in advance and had to have at least 51% of a residents on the street encouraging. So we've just never gotten to those steps.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from council members? Yes, Councilmember Katsas.
Thank you. I just have one for administration. Do you, and you didn't speak to it, but is there a department, are you already thinking about what department might, because I was thinking code enforcement doesn't probably want to have something else put on there.
Well, thank you for thinking about that. Once again, it always seems like the easy target is to go to the utility billing office, but we have to establish that. That's why we need time. We do not feel that this is something that can be rolled out here in August, September.
so you're basically changing the ordinance in terms of you're opening it up to every person in R1 district for 72 hours, which is
Who
not,
obtains the permit for the street that they reside on?
which is not the intent of this ordinance or for the pilot project from the beginning.
I'm just going on the feedback. We roundtabled this, and again, we were roundtabling while the mayor was at a different conference midweek last week when this was brought
And
forward.
meeting with the law director, I guess I'd like to hear her comment on that, because when we wrote the ordinance or reviewed the ordinance, I'd just like to hear your comment on this.
I participated early on in some of the roundtable discussions with the administration, and I had the same concern that the Oxford ordinance talks about the survey that they did, and we really haven't had a survey. That was some of the idea of waiting and having a survey, or perhaps having someone in the administration study, including maybe the city planner, the actual need for this. So I understand this is a pilot program. I would really rather see something to base it on in case there's any sort of challenge to it later on.
Thank you, Law Director. I'll just acknowledge briefly, since we are not in committee, but in a regular session, that steps to move forward would either be to amend the ordinance or to, council members can obviously, and this is just first reading, but council members can, when we get to the point, can vote on the ordinance as is, and the mayor can potentially veto it if they don't like the way the ordinance is written. And then we would go back to the drawing board and potentially look to address it then. But so we have some options, but right now we're not in committee meeting, we're just looking at first reading. Any other comments from members of the audience? None? Okay. And please kindly limit them to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Maybe shorter than that.
Okay.
Joan Konansky, 56 Mount Street. I guess what I'd like to say, and this is very difficult, this city has spoken often about citizen participation, and this is a citizen's initiative. And I find that certain members of the city administration have been intent on squashing this, and I really don't understand why. When I began this, my first talking point was with the mayor. We had two 2-hour meetings, 2 1-hour meetings, and we worked through a lot of things. Talked to Captain Harvey, and I went from there. Councilmember Pappy has been very helpful. I would like to say at the administrative meeting I went to, Captain Harvey said, well, whatever it is you want me to do, we'll do. So I feel a little discombobulated with the police chief now saying we can't do this. Because think about what we're talking about doing. Driving around with the chalk stick, marking a line, marking 2 lines, marking 3 lines. It's all very doable. The question is also, everyone with a curb cut does not pay $150 to have that curb cut.
That's right.
I gave up my curb cut. I told them to take the yellow line off because we needed more street parking. So, you know, if you look at anyone else's proposal like this, cities, municipalities are charging $25 a year because you're not getting a parking place indefinite like a curb cut. You're only getting a 72-hour reprieve from the 24-hour parking ordinance. One other comment. That would be that I hope council moves this forward. I think it's really valid. A lot of citizens would like this to happen. And I think it's time that we saw how we could go about relieving some of the burden on the close-in neighborhoods that are constantly under the eye of parking enforcement. So, and I would like to thank everybody so far who has devoted a lot of time to this. Michelle Pappy, the mayor, law director, other city council members, and support from Council Member Butler and citizens of Athens.
Thank you, Ms. Kransky.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
President Pro Tem, I'd
Yes.
like to make
Councilmember Pappy, thank you.
the comments from administration, again, change the intent of the ordinance, which is to relieve, and considering our comprehensive plan and our sustainability commission, to relieve walking someone's car. Not everybody has that issue. It's a minority of people on these streets in this pilot program in R1 district. So that's what the intent is. The intent isn't to give 100% parking with a permit to every single person in the residential district. If the law director says we have to do it that way, for legal reasons, I guess council needs to think about that. But again, we're looking at a pilot program to see if this helps people. We had several other residents besides Ms. Kransky come last week to discuss their concerns. They have absolutely no parking. I do not want to, as has been suggested to me, that, if you don't like it, you buy a property someplace else. I don't think that's the way we want to look at our older neighborhoods in this town, as saying, well, you have to go live someplace else if you want to park, in your yard. So I think the intent of this ordinance, again, was to alleviate some issues with the 24-hour parking rather than redoing the entire parking ordinance, which seems to have worked for this city for the amount of time that it's been in existence. So this is a small section, a subsection of people who have very limited parking because of the area in which they live. So we'll see where we go in this month of recess in terms of if people are willing to sit down and discuss this further.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments, public. Moving forward, we are on Ordinance 8417, an ordinance amending Ordinance 59-17, authorizing 2017 street paving and repairs, project number 312, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. I move to suspend 8417.
Second.
This is basically an ordinance that we passed a while back, but the funding model in terms of where the monies were coming from needed to be changed. So this is just a slight change, and we need to move forward in getting these projects moving.
Thank you. And the rationale behind suspension is?
The projects need to move forward. Street rehab, and on this particular one, it is for the paving and street repairs.
Thank you. Again, we have a motion to suspend in a second, so discussion solely on suspension. Any comments? All those in favor of moving to suspend ordinance and the rules 8417, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, the rules are under suspension. Councilmember, if you'd like to proceed.
Okay, I move to adopt 8417.
Second.
And this is an ordinance amending ordinance 5917, authorizing 2017 street paving and repairs. As you can see in the ordinance, what the changes are through the strikeouts there. It's a total of $275,000 for street repair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we proceed? I would like to express support for this ordinance and moving forward. I know the administration is being aggressive this year with street paving, which I applaud. It's been something that we've received on a continual basis from citizens, acknowledging that our streets are dilapidated and poorly maintained, and this is an opportunity for us to put hard-earned tax dollars to benefiting the community.
President Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you.
Just a minor clarification, the $275,000, yes, is part of the package, but the total for this year will be $550,000 that we'll be spending on the street repaving, grand total project.
Which is a significant increase from years past.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting ordinance 8417, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 8517, an ordinance amending ordinance 66-17, authorizing bids, construction, and right-of-way acquisition for the West Union Street Sidewalk Extension Project, number 309, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you again. I move to suspend 8517.
Second.
And again, the reason for this is in the original ordinance, it was monies were taken out of the wheel tax funds, and we cannot take money from the wheel tax funds for this. And this is for the construction of the new sidewalk on West Union Street.
Any questions or comments on suspension only? All those in favor of suspending the rules for ordinance 8517, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, please continue.
Thank you. I move to adopt 8517.
Second.
And I don't know if administration would like to clarify the amount total on this?
I don't know that there's any additional need to clarify anything else
So we're good?
on it. Yep, I think we're good.
So move to adopt for the West Union sidewalk extension.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Prior to voting, is there any comment from council or the public? Council members? Anything from the public? All those in favor of adopting ordinance 8517, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance has been adopted. Thank you, everyone. And again, we're moving forward to our last ordinance for first reading, ordinance 86-17, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA/state project agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for maintenance resurfacing on State Route 56 and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you. We discussed this last week. This is first reading. There is no need to suspend. And basically, what we're doing is tagging along here on the state. ODOT is paving Route 56. And as many of you know, part of State Route 56 is within the city limits. So in order to have one continuous new surface, we are going to tag along on that. And our share will be 20%, which is approximately $37,500 out of our 2018 street fund.
Thank you, Councilmember. Questions or comments? Yes,
Do you have
administration, thank you.
Perhaps a point of clarification and maybe a question of the auditor, because as I understand, this is the one, Auditor Hecht, where we're proposing the 37.5 as the city's portion, but did you want this ordinance to also include the match source? Does this need to be modified?
Yeah, that was our request from our office earlier today, and I believe that it has been added.
Oh,
Yeah.
it has been, oh, so it's in, okay.
City's share and where the
Oh,
other
from the
money's coming
2018 Street Fund 220.
That's right.
Is that sufficient information?
Yeah, because it's
Bring
not
it
an
up?
appropriation ordinance, we just wanted clarification so people would know where the money is coming from.
Okay.
I just want to ask why we wouldn't use that, state highway tax, because actually on one of the state highways, I do not know how much.
I did see that today. Actually, we don't have a lot of money in those funds, but maybe, around 50,000 a year, which can go quickly when you're paving roads. But I did think about that, but I think he's already using it somewhere else.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you for the clarifications and updates. We have one reading resolution. We have two. Resolution 05-17, a resolution expressing the City of Athens' commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions through implementation of a climate action plan, introduced by all council members. Who would like to speak on this evening?
I will.
Thank you, Councilmember Fall.
As you know, between golf games, our president has withdrawn the U.S. from the Paris Accords, which is, I would say, a very successful cooperation among 197 different countries. We are now with Syria and Nicaragua on not being a member of Paris. Nicaragua was not a member because it did not go far enough, and Syria's having issues. So, we are a community that prides itself on being, reality and fact-based. And so I don't think we need to read any of the whereases, because they're all the things that we have been talking about for years. However, I do want to talk about the sections that the City of Athens will follow through on. Section 1 is the City of Athens indicates its commitment to reducing greenhouse gases, emissions through implementation of a climate action plan, and which will include a greenhouse gas inventory for the city. Athens City Council supports the mayor's action in joining the mayor's National Climate Action Agenda and adopting and supporting the goals of the Paris Agreement. The City of Athens commits to exploring the potential benefits and costs of adopting policies and programs that promote the long-term goal of greenhouse gas emission reduction while maximizing economic and social co-benefits of such action. I want to point out also that this there may be an opportunity, people who are in charge of the implementation of Paris is looking at whether they can bypass the federal level for the United States and deal directly with the states and with the mayors of big cities. And so they understand that it's not many people in the United States knows that greenhouse gas emission is increasing and it's causing problems. And they understand that the action of the president is not something that a majority of people in the United States supports. So, thank you. I move that we adopt resolution.
Second.
Thank you for for that description. So we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Anyone else like to comment? Council members? Yes, Councilmember Pappy.
I would, because if we are going to implement, truly implement greenhouse gas emissions, then I think we need to look at our parking.
And that would be part of the climate action plan process that we will be going through. I just want to say that it's not unusual, it's not a new thing for us to do a plan like this. We have a sustainability plan which will be, the climate action will be a follow-on on that. So.
Thank you, council members. Any other comments from council? Yes, Councilmember Cobb.
I'd just like to add that I fully support this resolution and the consideration with every decision that council makes for what our impacts will be locally and further afoot than our local jurisdiction, because all politics is local and all carbon is not local. So this is an important action to take, an important first action for us.
Thank you. So I'm mindful of the phrase, we all live downstream. Councilmember.
Thank you. I would like to say I support this resolution, but I hope it's more than words. And I hope that when it comes to applying this resolution to fact patterns, such as the purchase of emergency equipment for the city of Athens, that we will explore alternatives. I know I've recently contacted several solar companies and asked them to contact the mayor's office to see that we can, as city council, we can actually get some options rather than merely vote for purchases. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Any comments from the mayor's office? Public? Council? Go ahead.
I do know that the mayor has spoken with one of the local solar dealers, and I believe acting mayor Chris Nicely has as well.
So just received the call today, yes. So I guess wearing both hats for the mayor, to speak on behalf of the mayor, and that he has joined the Mayor's National Climate Alliance agenda. And then also speaking as the president of council, to thank you all for your leadership on this resolution.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to comment? Thank you. We do have a motion and a second to support the resolution here and make it reality. All those in favor of adopting resolution 05-17, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Resolution has been passed unanimously. Resolution 06-17, a resolution expressing the appreciation of the City of Athens, Ohio, to Councilmember Jennifer Cochran for her public service. And this evening, I believe Councilmember Pappy has volunteered to read a few whereases to signify how much we appreciate Councilmember. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Cochran. A resolution expressing the appreciation of the City of Athens, Ohio, to Councilmember Jennifer Cochran for her public service. Whereas Jennifer Cochran has generously given her time to be a public servant, serving as a council member at large from January 2014 through June 2017. And whereas Jennifer Cochran served as the City Council representative on the Environment and Sustainability Commission and has been a strong proponent in protecting the city's natural environment, recognizing the right of all people to healthy, clean air and water. And whereas serving as the City Council representative on the Shade Tree Commission, Jennifer Cochran has been instrumental in the work of the commission to plan for trees in the Athens community. And whereas Jennifer Cochran has been a consistent and strong voice representing neighborhood concerns. And whereas Jennifer Cochran is vice chair of the Transportation Committee, and thank you, supporting the city's efforts for complete streets to ensure progressive movement toward more sustainable and healthful access to travel by bicycle and as a pedestrian. And whereas this council wishes her well in future endeavors, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Athens, Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you going to make a motion?
I move that we pass R617, that we adopt. Excuse me.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. And before we vote, I'll also acknowledge that we do have a small token of appreciation, which I'll see if we can get on the cameras as well here. It is a pencil pen rendering of the City of Athens City Building, which we are currently sitting in, so I'm not sure which camera to aim it towards. Thank you. Thank you again for your hard work.
Thank you.
May I add a comment?
Yes, indeed.
Just to say that I've just been very proud of your service. I remember the day you announced that you were going to run for council over in the park on the West State Street, and I was really excited to hear it then. And just to let you know, it's been an honor for all of us to serve and work with you. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Well, I feel obliged to throw in my own comment that it's been an honor to serve with all of you and to represent the citizens of Athens, because that's why I decided to run, to be a voice and continue dialogue and conversations with folks. And it will be very hard to leave Athens this summer. But I know that Athens is in very capable hands, and I'm excited to see other leaders stepping up to fill the slots on City Council. So thank you all.
Thank you. We also have this resolution. We have a motion and a second. I'm guessing this won't be too difficult for us to get a vote. All those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Resolution has been passed. I wasn't sure if you were going to vote a nay or not.
I was silent.
Yeah. Let the record indicate. Moving on to announcements and other businesses. We do have some appointments to boards and commissions. I believe we have two this evening. One is a reappointment and one is a new appointment. So we have the Environment and Sustainability Commission followed by the Disability Commission. Who will be speaking this evening on behalf of the reappointment for the Environment and Sustainability Commission? Do we have
We were tracking
Disabilities Commission only at this point.
only? Okay, the clerk and I had talked
Sorry.
earlier about
Was
the
this-
possibility of two this evening.
Meredith Price Mullins.
Thank you. Councilmember Fall.
I move that we reappoint Meredith Price Mullins to the Sustainability Commission.
Second.
And I would like to say thank you.
Yes.
Our commissions and committees in the city would not function, and the city would not function very well without people who go forward and put their time and energy into these volunteer positions. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Again, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
For the reappointments. And those opposed? Again, thank you for the volunteer work on the Environment and Sustainability Commission. Next, the Disability Commission. I believe we have a new appointment. Who will be speaking on that this evening? Yes, thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you. As a member of the Disability Commission, I would like to move for the appointment of Brian Bucher to that commission. He currently lives in Athens. He's been attending meetings of the commission for 8 months now in a volunteer capacity. He's active with several nonprofit organizations. He knows how to raise money and use social media for nonprofits, and I believe he'd be a valuable addition to the commission. He's the father of a disabled person and is involved in Aiden's Dream, and I think he would actively be involved in the accessibility project in Athens.
Thank you, sir. Questions or comments? Okay, we have,
Motion.
a motion, thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the new appointment of Mr. Brian Booker to the Disability Commission, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It has been noted. We have a new member. Thank you. Moving on, you should be in possession of the auditor's May 2017 financial report. I need a motion on accepting the report. Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting the report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, we've accepted the report. We're now at the point in our agenda where there's an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that were not covered on this evening's agenda. The podium is open if anyone wishes to speak. Okay, seeing none, we next on our agenda this evening have executive session listed here. We have to make a motion and a vote to move into executive session, and we have to identify what it is that we were discussing in that executive session loosely. Is there
I
noted?
move that we move into executive session for collective bargaining and pending litigation. Woohoo. Two matters. With everybody on council, the law director, the acting mayor, service safety director, and auditor.
Thank you. And if I could please individually see an aye.
Do we have a second?
Need a second.
Yeah, we did have a second,
Okay.
actually. Councilmember Cochran made a
So
second.
quiet.
I know.
Aye.
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 Wonderful. We will give the news an opportunity to ask questions here before we move into executive session. We can offer 5 minutes since it looks like a relatively small crowd this evening. And then we can move into executive session immediately after that. We will then close executive session and then re-adjourn. Thank you.